Addiction is not a moral failure. It is not a sign of weakness or lack of willpower. It is the human response to overwhelming internal pain, combined with the absence of the emotional tools needed to face that pain. Our culture teaches people to hide their hurt, to silence their needs, to numb their emotions, and to survive by any means necessary. Addiction is often the survival strategy that emerges from this silence. People do not break cycles because they are shamed into doing better. People break cycles when they finally understand what their mind, body, and nervous system have been doing to protect them. This audiobook is a journey into that understanding, a path inward, a conversation meant to guide you back to yourself. Thank you for walking this path with me. Pharaoh B. End of preface. Chapter 1. Opening the Door. By the messenger, Pharaoh B. All right, come in. Yeah, you made it here. And I want you to know that already means more than you think. Don't sit up straight, don't brace, don't perform, just settle. Let the weight you've been carrying fall to the floor for a moment. This is not a test. This is not a lecture. This is not me critiquing your life from some high and visible perch. This is a doorway, a quiet one, a sacred one, and you walked through it. You showed up. People underestimate how rare that is. Thank you for meeting me here. I want to start like this. There is a version of you that has been trying to speak for a very long time. A version buried beneath the noise, the shame, the addiction, the mistakes, the coping, the hiding, the trying, the failing, the trying again. That version of you is still alive. Maybe buried, maybe shaken, maybe tired, maybe scared. Maybe hidden behind a lifetime of habits you didn't choose consciously, but alive. And this conversation is the beginning of you learning how to hear them again. The moment the running stops. There is a moment in everyone's life where the running stops. Not because you found the strength to stop, but because you found a truth you can't keep running from. Sometimes it sounds like, I can't do this anymore. I don't recognize myself. Something has to change. Or sometimes it's just a breath, one shaky inhale that hurts more than it heals. If you're here, then some part of you has reached that moment, and I want to honor that. Many people never reach it. They stay asleep. They stay numb. They stay inside the cycle until there's nothing left of them to return to. But not you. You woke up. You walked in. You opened the door. Even though part of you is terrified of what happens next. That courage matters. I see it. I respect it. Why we start here. Before we talk about addiction or healing or shame, or relapse, or science, or survival, or identity, we have to start with you, the human being, the soul, the person beneath the patterns. Addiction is not the beginning of your story, it's the middle. It's a detour, it's an adaptation, the way you learned to breathe when life didn't give you air. So we're not starting with blame. We're not starting with judgment. We're not starting with labels. We're not starting with the assumption that something is wrong with you. We're starting with truth. The truth you haven't heard enough. You're not broken. You're burdened. You're not weak. You're overwhelmed. You're not lost. You're tired of walking alone. You're not failing. You're fighting a battle you were never given the instructions for, and even then, you kept going. That is strength. Not the loud kind, not the kind that gets applause, the kind that lives in silence, in shaking hands, in quiet mornings, in midnight panic, in trying again after a day that drained everything from you. That strength is in you, even if you haven't felt it in a while. A story we all share. There's a moment many people face, maybe once, maybe 1,000 times, when they look in the mirror and think, I don't like the direction I'm going. I don't know who I am anymore. I'm not living the life I'm meant to live. And that moment is not failure. It is awakening. It is your soul tapping you on the shoulder saying, this isn't your whole story. Come home. If this finds you in that place or anywhere near it, hear this. You're not late. You're not early. You're right on time for the version of you that your spirit has been waiting to become. You're safe here. I want you to feel something as we walk through this. Safety. The safety to feel. The safety to reflect. The safety to be honest. The safety to breathe again. The safety to not know all the answers. The safety to take your time. Nothing here will rush you. Nothing will shame you. Nothing will demand perfection. Nothing will tell you, just stop, because if it were that simple, you would have done it already. This is a space for understanding, for unraveling, for returning, for becoming. You don't get many spaces like that. Consider this one of them. A moment just for you. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the warmth. Feel the rise. Feel the beat. Whisper to yourself, I'm here. Not I'm fixed. Not I'm healed. Not I'm ready. Just I'm here. That sentence is the foundation of healing, because for a long time, you've been everywhere except here. In memories, in fears, in habits, in coping, in fantasies, in hiding, but not here. And now you are. Now we can begin. The door opens. You're not listening to this by accident. Something in you, the wiser part, the deeper part, the part that survived when nothing made sense, brought you here. Trust that part. It knows the way home. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. What Addiction Really Is, by the messenger, Pharaoh B. All right, let's step through this door together. I want to tell you something the way someone should have told you years ago. Not the surface level explanation, not the judgment, not the label people love to throw around when they don't understand pain. I want to tell you the truth about addiction, not the stereotype, not the shame, not the watered down version, the reality. Because when you understand what addiction actually is, you stop fighting yourself and start understanding the emotional survival system your brain built without your permission. It's not about the substance. Addiction isn't about alcohol, drugs, porn, gambling, food, scrolling, chaos, the wrong person. Those are just the outlets, the symptoms, the carriers. Addiction is deeper. Addiction is what happens when a human being discovers something that temporarily quiets a pain they don't know how to live with. That's it. That's the heart of it. Addiction is a relationship between you and a feeling you don't know how to create on your own. Relief, escape, comfort, numbness, distraction, warmth, belonging, control, or the illusion of control. The feeling is the addiction, not the thing. It's never the drink, the high, or the habit. It's the experience. Here's what I mean. You're not addicted to the drink. You're addicted to the silence it gives your mind. You're not addicted to the high. You're addicted to feeling something in the moments you feel nothing. You're not addicted to the gamble. You're addicted to the hope that sparks right before the loss. You're not addicted to porn. You're addicted to closeness without vulnerability. You're not addicted to a person. You're addicted to how they make you feel before they hurt you. You're not addicted to chaos. You're addicted to intensity because calm feels foreign. And once you see this clearly, you stop asking, why can't I quit? And you start asking, what pain is this helping me escape? That question is the beginning of freedom. Addiction is a compensation, not a character flaw. People love to moralize addiction. They love to judge what they've never lived. But here's the truth. Addiction is what happens when your emotional world never had a safe place to land. Let me say it clean. Addiction is a compensation for emotional needs that were never met. It is not a failure of morality, a lack of strength, a lack of intelligence, a curse, a defect, or proof you're doomed. It is an emotional strategy developed by a younger version of you who didn't have the tools to handle the life they were living. That version of you deserves compassion, not condemnation. The brain learns what works, even if it hurts you later. Let's talk about your brain in a human way. Your brain's first job is survival, not happiness. When you feel overwhelming emotional pain, your brain searches for relief. Whatever works fastest gets encoded as a survival strategy. It doesn't matter if the strategy is toxic or destructive or ruins your life later. If it brings relief right now, your brain says, yes, this keeps us alive. And because addiction works quickly, the brain builds a shortcut to it, a neurological express lane. Even when you hate it, even when you swear you'll stop, even when the consequences break you, your brain isn't disloyal, it's misinformed. It believes the addiction is saving you. What you're really fighting. You're not fighting a substance, a habit, a behavior, a demon, or the worst version of yourself. You're fighting your survival wiring, your stress physiology, your emotional repression, your childhood adaptations, your unprocessed memories, your nervous system, your lack of coping tools, your loneliness, your shame, your overwhelm. Tell me, how could anyone face all of that and not struggle? Of course you struggled. Of course you fell. Of course you reached for something that felt like rescue. That's not a moral failure. That's human nature. Let me tell you about someone. Let's call him Aaron. On the outside, Aaron looked fine. He laughed at parties. He held a job. Nobody worried about him. But every night, around midnight, there was an ache in his chest, a loneliness he couldn't name. He didn't drink to get drunk. He drank to quiet that ache. He didn't have a substance problem. He had a silence problem, a no one ever taught me how to sit with my emotions problem, and I'm scared to be seen honestly problem, and I don't know how to ask for help problem. His addiction wasn't the alcohol. It was the relief he didn't know how to create anywhere else. That's most people. Not weak, not flawed, just human. You're not addicted because you're broken. You're addicted because you're human. Say that slowly inside yourself. Addiction happens when pain meets insufficient tools. That's it. That's the truth. And here's the part I want you to hold. If addiction is a learned survival strategy, It can be unlearned, replaced, rewired, rewritten. You are not stuck. You are not condemned. You are not doomed to repeat the cycle. You are a human being whose brain and body did the best they could with what they had. Now you're learning more. And when you know more, you adapt again, this time toward healing. The doorway out begins with understanding. Before you quit anything, before you change anything, before you punish yourself for slipping again, first you learn the truth. Because truth, not shame, is what opens the door to freedom. Now that you understand what addiction really is, you can stop blaming yourself for a system you inherited, a habit you adapted to, a coping mechanism you never meant to rely on. You can begin to look at yourself with compassion instead of condemnation. That shift alone changes everything. End of chapter 2.
Chapter 3. The many shapes addiction takes.
All right, come closer for this one. Because if we're being honest, addiction doesn't always look the way people think it does. It's not always a bottle in a paper bag. It's not always a needle. It's not always shaking hands or slurred speech or losing everything you own. Sometimes, addiction looks like a clean house, a perfect smile, a person who says, "I'm fine," a little too quickly. Sometimes addiction looks like discipline. Sometimes it looks like independence. Sometimes it looks like success. Sometimes it looks like someone who holds everything together so tightly that their fingers tremble when nobody is watching. The world gave you one picture of addiction. It was incomplete. Let's complete it now. Addiction can take many forms: alcohol, drugs, pills, nicotine. Yes, those are obvious. But even with those, the addiction is never the substance. It's the experience the substance provides. The quiet mind, the softened ache, the temporary forgetting, the warm numbness, the predictable escape. It's always the feeling, never the object. Other addictions hide in plain sight: scrolling, shopping, porn, binge eating, starving, video games, gambling, overworking, over-exercising, chasing highs, chasing drama, chasing validation. Most people are addicted to something without ever naming it. Society rewards the addictions that make you productive or keep you quiet, but they're addictions all the same. Then there are emotional addictions, the invisible ones: anger, sadness, self-pity, resentment, chaos, intensity. Why? Because those emotions become familiar, and sometimes the pain you know feels safer than the peace you don't. There are people who don't know how to function unless something is going wrong, unless there is a crisis, unless there is tension or conflict, unless the nervous system is on fire. They aren't broken. Their bodies simply never learned how to rest. You can also become addicted to a person, not because they're good for you, not because they meet your needs, not because they bring out your best, but because they temporarily silence your wounds. You go back to them the way people go back to substances. I know this hurts me. I know I should leave. I know this isn't love, but I can't let go. That isn't stupidity, it's attachment trauma. It's emotional imprinting. It's your nervous system confusing familiarity with safety. Some people feel like home even when they burn the house down. There is another addiction almost no one recognizes: identity addiction. Being the strong one, being the quiet one, being the victim, being the overachiever, being the broken one, being the one who doesn't need help, being the one who carries everyone else. These identities once kept you alive. They protected you emotionally when nothing else did. But the identity that saved you then may be the identity that is suffocating you now. Letting go of it can feel like dying, because who are you without the story that shaped you? And still, This is the invisible addiction almost everyone carries.
The biggest lie people tell themselves is, my addiction isn't as bad as theirs. But almost everyone is addicted to something. Some addictions destroy the body, some destroy the heart, some destroy relationships, some destroy dreams, some destroy potential, some destroy your sense of who you are. But all addictions come from the same place, a feeling you never learned how to hold. There was a woman I once knew, we'll call her Brianna. She didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't gamble. People called her strong, reliable, always put together. But Brianna had a secret. She was addicted to being fine, to appearing fine, to performing fine, to holding everyone else together, to never letting anyone know she was drowning inside. Her entire identity became the strong one. It protected her as a child, but trapped her as an adult. One day she told me, I don't know who I'd be if I wasn't the one who's okay. Her addiction wasn't to a substance, it was to a role. And roles can be just as suffocating as any drug. So the question isn't, am I addicted? The real question is, what am I using to avoid myself? You can use anything to run from yourself. Anything. And the moment you see what your chosen anything is, the fog starts to lift. Your addiction isn't random, it's patterned, it's adaptive, it's intelligent in its own complicated way. It has been trying to protect you. And now, you get to learn a healthier way. If anything I've said here felt like I was speaking directly to you, I was. Not because I know everything about you, but because I know the shape of human struggle. And if part of you whispered, that's me, how did he know? I've never said that out loud. Let me tell you something true. You are not alone. You are not strange. You are not beyond healing. You are not beyond change. You are not the worst thing you ever did to survive. You are human, and humans cope in whatever way they can when they don't feel safe. Seeing the truth is the beginning of freeing yourself. Now that you understand the many shapes addiction takes, we can walk deeper into where it begins. The roots, the wounds, the first fractures in the story. That's where we go next. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4, The Roots. All right, this is where things get real. We've talked about the shapes of addiction, the disguises, the behaviors people see from the outside. But now we're going beneath all of that, beneath the coping, beneath the habits, beneath the patterns you learned to survive. We're going to the root. Addiction doesn't begin with the addiction. It begins with the wound that came before it. A wound you might not remember, a wound you minimized, a wound you explained away, a wound you were too young or too overwhelmed to understand. This isn't about blaming anyone. It's about finally understanding yourself in a way that brings relief instead of shame. Stay with me. Let's walk slowly. The root is never weakness. It's unattended pain. Most people think addiction begins with the first drink, the first hit, the first binge, the first coping behavior. No. Addiction begins the first time you felt something your system didn't know how to hold. The first time you felt abandoned, rejected, invisible, scared, unprepared, alone, unloved, unimportant, unprotected. Addiction begins the first time your nervous system said, I can't handle this, and no one taught you how. So you learn to escape instead, not because you're weak, because you were alone with a feeling too big for you. The first root, emotions you weren't allowed to feel. Many of us grew up in environments where emotions were treated as problems,
not signals. You may have heard, "Stop crying. You're too sensitive. Don't be dramatic. Fix your face. Keep the peace. Be strong. I don't want to hear it. You're fine." And so you learned something tragic. Your emotions were not safe to express, not welcome, not allowed. So you swallowed them, buried them, minimized them, pretended they didn't hurt. But emotions don't disappear. They accumulate, they tighten, they ferment inside you. And eventually, you found something that quieted them, even if only for a moment. That moment is where the seed of addiction is planted. The second root, caregivers who are human too. This part is delicate. The people who raised you did the best they could with the tools they had. But if they were overwhelmed, depressed, unhealed, stressed, fearful, critical, emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, unpredictable, then you grew up in an environment that taught you survival, not regulation. A child who learns survival becomes an adult who repeats survival. That's not your fault. That's your wiring. The third root, the day you became strong. Some of the most addicted people on earth are the ones who learned too early to be strong. The caretaker child, the peacekeeper, the emotional sponge, the fixer, the child who raised siblings, the child who protected a parent, the child who absorbed the storms of the home. Strength became your identity, your mask, your burden. But no one asked you the real question: who holds you? If no one did, your addiction became the thing holding you up. That's not weakness, that's adaptation. The fourth root, the loneliness you never named. One of the deepest roots of addiction is loneliness, not physical isolation, emotional loneliness. The loneliness of holding secrets, carrying pain no one sees, feeling misunderstood, feeling unworthy, feeling like a burden, feeling unchosen, feeling too much, feeling not enough. You can be surrounded by people and still be starving for connection. When the world expects you to smile, perform, achieve, stay calm, be reasonable, be the rock, be selfless, be silent, you eventually learn to hide the real parts of yourself. Hidden parts rot, and addiction becomes the place where that loneliness goes to breathe. The fifth root, the trauma you minimized. Trauma isn't just the big dramatic events people talk about. Trauma is anything that overwhelmed your system when you didn't have the tools to cope. Divorce, bullying, abandonment, inconsistent love, emotional neglect, constant pressure, parentification, fear, violence, loss, deep shame, heartbreak, being compared, being ignored, being punished for emotions. You may have told yourself, it wasn't that bad. Others had it worse. It doesn't matter now. But pain doesn't need permission to affect you. Your body remembers even when your mind moves on. The sixth root, the first time escape worked. There was a moment, you may not remember it, where you reached for something and it worked. The drink, the hit, the food, the chaos, the person, the distraction, the binge, the scroll. It soothed you. It silenced the noise. It softened the ache. It numbed the fear. It calmed the loneliness. Just for a moment, you felt okay. And your brain said, remember this, we might need it again. That moment is where addiction is truly born. Not because the substance was special, but because the relief was unforgettable. Story, the boy who learned to hold his breath.
There was a boy, let's call him Eli. Eli grew up in a home where emotions were landmines. A raised voice meant danger. A slammed door meant chaos. Silence meant something was brewing. So Eli learned to hold his breath emotionally. He made himself small, quiet, careful, invisible, always bracing, always anticipating the next explosion. As an adult, his body still held that breath. The first time he drank, he exhaled. The first time he smoked, he exhaled. The first time he binged, scrolled, escaped, he exhaled. He wasn't addicted to the thing. He was addicted to finally breathing. This is how roots work. The roots are not your fault, but the healing is your responsibility. You didn't choose the wound, but you can choose the healing. You didn't choose the environment, but you can choose the tools now. You didn't choose the childhood, but you can choose the adulthood. You didn't choose the pain, but you can choose the path out of it. And now, with this understanding, you finally have something you never had before: clarity. Because once you see the roots, you stop hating the tree. You begin healing it. Before we move forward, if something stirred inside you during this chapter, that movement matters. It means the roots are waking up. It means truth is landing. It means you're ready to understand why the same patterns repeat. Next, we talk about the cycle, the loop that keeps pulling you back even when your heart wants out. Let's move there. End of chapter 4. Chapter 5, the cycle. Okay, this is where things start to make sense. Addiction feels chaotic on the surface, but underneath there's a pattern, a predictable loop your nervous system learned long before you had words for it. Once you see the pattern, you stop blaming yourself for something your body was repeating automatically. Let's walk through it. The trigger. Every cycle begins with a moment you barely notice, a tone in someone's voice, a memory, a sudden silence, a disappointment, a lonely evening, an unresolved feeling, a bad day, a sense of emptiness that hits out of nowhere. Sometimes the trigger is small, sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's just being alone with your thoughts. Your body reacts before your mind understands what's happening. The tension, your chest tightens, your throat closes, your stomach drops, your breath becomes shallow. Your mind speeds up. Your body whispers, "This feeling is too much. We need relief." This tension is the spark, the nervous system signaling danger. Not physical danger, emotional danger. The craving. A craving is not desire. A craving is pressure. It's your body saying, "Make this feeling stop, right now." Your brain remembers what worked last time, even if it hurt you later. And the craving grows louder, sharper, heavier. But a craving is still just a wave. It rises, it peaks, it falls. It feels endless in the moment, but it passes if you don't feed it fear. The ritual. Most people think the addiction itself is the act, the drink, the scroll, the binge, the chaos. But the real addiction often lies in the ritual. The setup, the choreography, the way you walk into the kitchen, the way you open the drawer, the way you sit in the same spot, the way you prepare the moment. Your nervous system calms as soon as the ritual begins. This is where the body anticipates relief before the relief even comes. The ritual becomes the hook, the release. This is the moment that keeps you returning, the quieting of the mind, the numbing of the ache, the slowing of the thoughts, the easing of the pressure, the escape from yourself. It's not healing, it's borrowed peace. Borrowed peace always demands repayment. The crash. Then the relief fades, the guilt, the regret, the anxiety, the shame, the physical discomfort, the emotional collapse. Your system recognizes the cost. Your heart feels the weight. And then the cycle moves to its most dangerous part,
the shame. Shame is not guilt. Shame is identity collapse. Shame says, I am the mistake. I am the problem. I am the failure. I always ruin everything. Shame convinces you that you are the issue, not the pain, not the trauma, not the overwhelm, not the survival wiring. And shame drives you back into the very cycle that hurt you, not for pleasure, for relief, the promise. After the shame comes the vow. I'm done. This was the last time. I'm starting over tomorrow. I swear I can change. And you mean it. You truly do. But without understanding the cycle, the promise becomes part of the cycle. Because the next trigger comes. The tension rises. The craving returns. The ritual pulls you in. The release numbs the pain. The crash breaks your heart. The shame wraps around your body. And you swear again that you'll never do it again. Not because you're weak, because you've been conditioned. What people don't understand. People say, just stop. Use self-control. You know better. You're smarter than this. But none of that breaks the cycle. This loop is not logical. It's emotional, psychological, neurological, physiological. You're not fighting knowledge. You're fighting your nervous system. Wiring can be changed, but not by shame. You're not broken. You're looped. You're not broken. You're looped. Loops can be interrupted. Patterns can be changed. Responses can be rewired. A loop is not a destiny. It's a habit of the nervous system. Once you see it clearly, it begins to lose its power. A soft landing. Now that you understand the cycle, the trigger, the tension, the craving, the ritual, the release, the crash, the shame, the promise, you're no longer moving in the dark. You can see the architecture. You can recognize the signals. You can interrupt the loop instead of drowning in it. And now, you're ready for the moment the cycle begins to break. Awareness without judgment. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6. Awareness without judgment. Awareness is where everything begins. Not the type that shames you, not the kind that points at your mistakes and calls them your identity. I mean the kind of awareness that lets you look at yourself without running away. You spent years thinking you need to punish yourself to change yourself. But punishment never saved a single soul. Punishment only teaches fear. Judgment teaches collapse. Shame teaches hiding. Awareness teaches returning. Judgment paralyzes you. When you slip into an old pattern, when you relapse, when you say something you regret, when you reach for the thing you swore you didn't need anymore, the first voice that often appears is the harsh one. You're pathetic. You ruined it. You always do this. You'll never change. What's wrong with you? You know that voice. It has lived inside you for years. Maybe it sounded like someone from your past. Maybe it was built from moments you didn't fully survive emotionally. Maybe it came from growing up in a place where softness was punished and mistakes were unforgivable. But that voice is not truth. It's trauma speaking in your tone. Judgment collapses the system. Judgment activates the amygdala, the fear center, the panic center, the part of you that can't think clearly or choose wisely. Judgment traps you in the cycle you're trying to escape. Awareness frees you. Awareness doesn't say, I'm disgusting. Awareness says, I'm overwhelmed. Awareness doesn't say, I'm weak. Awareness says, I didn't have the tools to hold that moment. Awareness doesn't say, I ruin everything. Awareness says, there's something deeper happening inside me. Awareness creates space. Judgment shuts it down. Awareness activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that learns, grows, adapts, and decides. It is the part of you that makes long-term change possible. Awareness says, I see the pattern, and because I see it, I can change it. What awareness looks like in real life. Imagine this. You're standing in your kitchen late at night. Your chest is tight. Your thoughts are speeding. Your stomach feels hollow. You open the cabinet without thinking. Judgment says, look at you. You're doing it again. You're a failure. Awareness says, my chest is tight. My thoughts are racing. I'm reaching for escape because something hurts. Judgment attacks. Awareness observes. Or imagine this. You're driving home. Your day was heavy. You feel invisible, unappreciated, tired down to the bone. Judgment says, you always crumble. Awareness says, I'm lonely. I'm overwhelmed. I'm needing comfort. Do you feel the difference? Awareness turns the light on. Judgment keeps you in the dark. A story. The man who learned to notice before he fell. There was a man named Kai. For years, Kai spiraled every time stress hit him. He didn't drink every night, only the nights he felt like the world was spinning and he couldn't slow it down. For a long time, he thought the alcohol was the beginning of the problem. Then one day, someone taught him awareness without judgment. So he tried it. The next time a craving hit, he paused. He put his hand on the counter and whispered, what emotion came before this? He waited. He breathed. And the truth rose up. I feel unseen. I feel alone. I feel like nobody is proud of me. That was the first time in his life he saw the craving as a messenger, not an enemy. The next craving came. He asked again. Another truth rose up, and another, and another. Over weeks, the awareness weakened the reflex. The ritual softened. The craving lost its urgency. Kai didn't become perfect, he became present. And presence broke the loop that shame kept strengthening. Awareness shows up in moments you don't expect. Awareness is catching yourself in the mirror and seeing sadness instead of failure. It's noticing your hand shaking and saying, I'm scared, instead of, I'm pathetic. It's hearing your internal critic and responding, that's an old voice, not my truth. It's recognizing that the urge to run is actually the desire to be held. It's realizing the craving is a signal, not a command. A practical framework you can use anytime. Name it, normalize it, nurture it. Name it, I feel anxious, I feel abandoned, I feel pressure, I feel ashamed, I feel tired. Normalize it. It makes sense I feel this way. Anyone with my story would feel this. My body is protecting me. Nurture it. What do I need right now? Who can I talk to? What can I breathe into? How can I make this moment safer for myself? This is not weakness. This is emotional intelligence. This is spiritual maturity. This is nervous system repair. A story, the woman who learned to stay with herself. There was a woman named Maria. Maria had a habit of disappearing whenever life got too loud. She didn't vanish physically, she vanished from herself. One night, she felt a panic rising in her chest and reached for the familiar escape. Her hand was shaking when she stopped and said, I'm here. 5 seconds passed. The panic didn't vanish, but it softened. She said, I'm staying with you this time. Not to anyone else, to herself. That night, she didn't escape. She didn't run. She didn't collapse. She stayed. And staying changed everything. Not all at once, but one breath at a time. Why this works on a biological level. Awareness without judgment keeps your nervous system open. When you're open, you can regulate, you can choose, you can reach for tools instead of triggers. Judgment slams the door, awareness opens it gently. Shame floods the system, compassion calms it. Fear blinds you, presence grounds you. This is not philosophy, this is physiology. A moment for you. Put your hand on your chest, just rest it there. Feel the rise, feel the warmth, feel the life. Say softly inside yourself, I see you. I understand why you're hurting. We're learning. I'm not abandoning you. That is awareness without judgment. That is how healing begins. That is how you rewire a lifetime of shame. Closing. Awareness without judgment is the first step out of the cycle. It's not force, it's not perfection, it's not punishment. It's the simple act of seeing yourself truthfully without turning away. This chapter is the bridge between understanding your cycle and learning how to break it. And now, you are ready for the tools that make change possible. End of Chapter 6. Chapter 7. The tools that actually work. You've walked through the shame, the roots, the cycle, the truth. Now you're ready for something real. Not cliches, not empty encouragement, not just stop, but tools you can actually use in the exact moments you feel yourself slipping. Tools that work in chaos. Tools that work in cravings. Tools that work at 2 a.m. when you feel alone with the whole world on your chest. These aren't promises, these are practices. Let's put power back in your hands. Tool 1, urge surfing, riding the wave instead of drowning in it. A craving feels like it will last forever, but cravings are waves. They rise, they peak, they fall. They feel unbearable only when you believe you must obey them. You don't. Try this when a craving hits. I feel a wave rising. It's uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. Place your attention in your body. Where is the pressure? Your chest, your throat, your hands, your stomach? Just notice, not judge, not obey. Just notice. When you stop feeding the craving fear, its power crumbles. There was a woman named Serena. Every night the craving hit her like a storm. She thought she was powerless until she learned urge surfing. One night she held still and whispered, I'm watching the wave. It rose, it shook her, it burned through her chest. Then it fell. 8 minutes, that's all it lasted. She realized the truth. She wasn't afraid of the craving. She was afraid of the fear around it. You can ride the wave. You already have. Tool 2, pattern interruption, breaking the ritual that leads to relapse. Every addiction has a ritual, the setup, the preparation, the autopilot choreography. The ritual begins long before the behavior, the chair, the drawer, the scroll, the route home, the bathroom mirror, the kitchen light, the silence. You interrupt the ritual. You interrupt the cycle. Try something simple. Stand up. Turn on a different light. Move to another room. Touch something cold. Step outside. Change your body position. This snaps your brain out of involuntary momentum. A man named Jonah realized his relapse always began on the same couch at the same time. So one night, he sat on the floor instead. 12 seconds later, he felt the spell break. Sometimes the smallest shift opens the biggest door. Tool 3, calming the nervous system. You don't need willpower, you need safety. Addiction isn't a willpower problem, it's a nervous system problem. Your brain reaches for the addiction when your system enters fight, flight, freeze, or collapse. Calm the body first. Choice comes next. Try one of these: 4 to 7 to 8 breathing. Inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. Cold exposure. Cold water on wrists, neck, or face activates the vagus nerve and stops panic fast. Grounding. Name 5 things you see, 4 you hear, 3 you can touch, 2 you can smell, 1 you can taste. Safety turns cravings into information instead of commands. Tool 4. Replacement rituals. You can't delete a habit, you replace it. Every addiction is doing a job: comfort, distraction, escape, connection, stimulation, silencing the pain. You don't break addiction by removing the job. You break it by replacing the job. Ask yourself, what was I trying to feel when I reached for that? Then try a different ritual. Loneliness, call someone safe. Anxiety, breath work. Numbness, movement. Overthinking, grounding. Sadness, journaling. Restlessness, walking. Shame, compassionate self-talk. One replacement ritual can save you from 100 relapses. Tool 5, the 1-hour contract. Forever is too heavy. Forever overwhelms the mind. Never again shuts down the nervous system. But 1 hour? 1 hour is human. Try saying, I won't do it for 1 hour. Most cravings die long before 60 minutes pass. This is not about perfection. It's about giving yourself a window of choice instead of drowning in forever.
Tool 6. The shame reset. Relapse isn't failure, it's data. When you relapse, your first instinct is to collapse. But relapse isn't the opposite of progress. Relapse is feedback. Ask, what emotion came first? What triggered this? What story did I tell myself? What tool did I skip? What pattern do I see? This turns relapse into learning. Learning turns into resilience. Shame keeps you trapped. Awareness frees you. Tool 7. Identity micro shifts. Becoming the version of you who doesn't need the addiction. You don't need to become a new person overnight. You become a new person one small identity shift at a time. Say to yourself, I am someone who returns. I am someone who tries. I am someone who breathes first. I am someone who doesn't abandon myself. I am someone who learns from myself, not punishes myself. These shifts rewrite the story your nervous system tells about who you are. Identity changes behavior. Behavior changes life. A story, the night everything changed for Leo. Leo believed he was broken. Every relapse felt like proof. Every slip felt like a prophecy. One night, during a craving, he didn't fight it and didn't obey it. He sat on the edge of his bed, put his hand on his heart and whispered, I'm overwhelmed, and I'm trying. Something softened, something unclenched, something shifted inside him. For the first time in years, he didn't relapse. Not because he forced himself, but because he finally stayed with himself. Healing starts in moments like that. Small moments where you choose to stay instead of abandon yourself. Closing. These tools aren't about perfection. They're about presence. They're about meeting yourself in the moments you used to run.
With these tools, you're no longer powerless in the cycle. You're becoming the version of you who knows how to interrupt the storm and return to yourself with compassion. Now that you have tools, you're ready to face the darkest part of the journey with clarity and courage. End of Chapter 7.
Chapter 8. The Dark Night. There are parts of this journey you don't talk about with anyone. Moments that happen behind closed doors, in the quiet, in the shadows, inside the places you've learned to hide. This chapter is for those moments. The moments when everything feels too heavy, when the noise inside you gets too loud, when your chest tightens and your mind spirals and the world feels far away. The moments you call your dark nights. And if you're here, it means you've lived through more of those nights than you let people know. What rock bottom really is. Most people think rock bottom is the worst thing that ever happened to you, but that's not true. Rock bottom isn't the event. Rock bottom is the collapse. It's the moment your coping stops coping, the moment your strength runs out, the moment you can't lie to yourself anymore, the moment the mask can't hold. It's when the stories you've used to stay alive start to crumble and the truth you've been avoiding rushes in like cold air. It's the moment you say, I can't keep doing this, and for the first time you truly mean it. The night everything falls apart. Let's speak plainly. There are nights where you sit on the edge of your bed with your hands in your hair and your breath shaking like it's the only thing left alive inside you. Nights where you look at your own reflection and don't recognize the person staring back. Nights where you whisper to no one, I don't know who I am anymore. Nights where you feel like you can't climb out of the mind you're trapped in. Nights you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. Those nights are part of this path. Not because you deserve them, not because you failed, but because the human heart can only carry so much before it erupts. The pain that comes after trying. There is a special kind of pain that comes after effort. The pain of relapsing after a week you were proud of. The pain of falling after you told someone you were changing. The pain of breaking a promise you wanted to keep more than anything. The pain of watching your hope crumble in your own hands. It's not the relapse itself that hurts the most. It's the heartbreak of disappointing the version of you that was trying. But listen, this is not proof you can't change. It's proof you're in the middle of change. Trying always comes before mastery. Breaking always comes before breakthrough. The silence after the spiral. What breaks people the most is not the relapse. It's the silence afterward. It's the shame. It's the regret. It's the way your stomach sinks as you sit there thinking, how did I do this again? It's the fear of telling anyone, the pressure to pretend nothing happened, the loneliness that grabs your throat and makes it hard to breathe. It's the isolation. The dark night grows in silence because silence convinces you you're alone in something almost everyone lives through. You're not alone, not even close. Your body remembers the breaking point. Your nervous system remembers everything you've survived. The shaking, the crying, the breathlessness, the numbness, the panic, the hopelessness, the collapse. But your body also remembers something else. It remembers that you got back up. Even if you crawled, even if it took weeks, even if you thought you'd never stand again. Your resilience is older than your addiction. The dark night isn't the end, it's the threshold. Here is a truth most people are never told. The dark night is not where you die, it's where you're reborn. It's the space between chapters, the hallway between lives, the shedding before the becoming. It tears away the denial, the illusion of control, the stories that hurt you,
the coping that saved you once but now suffocates you, the identities you outgrew, the patterns that kept you small. Rock bottom is not destruction, it is the beginning of reconstruction. What to do when you're in the dark night. Here is how you survive the nights that make you question everything. 1. Be gentle with yourself. Your mind is fragile in these moments. Speak softly. 2. Drink water. Your body is trying to regulate. 3. Sit or lie on the floor. The ground calms the nervous system when nothing else can. 4. Put your hand on your chest. Say, I'm here. I'm not abandoning you. 5. Name the emotion. I'm scared. I'm lonely. I'm overwhelmed. Naming dissolves intensity. 6. Make no decisions tonight. The brain lies when it's hurting. 7. Reach out if you can. Even one sentence, I'm struggling. Loneliness is the accelerant of suffering. Connection is the antidote.
A story. The woman who thought she was done. There was a woman named Elise. Elise believed she'd ruined her life. She'd relapsed after months of progress. She felt like she had betrayed everyone, including herself. That night she lay on her bathroom floor, cold tile against her skin, breathing like her ribs were breaking. She whispered, "This is it. I can't do this anymore." But then something unexpected happened. She put her hand on her heart and said, "I'm still here." Just those words, "I'm still here." It wasn't strength, it wasn't hope, it was truth. Something softened, something shifted, something opened. She stood up, she washed her face, she cried, she slept. And in the morning, she kept going. The night didn't end her. It ended the version of her that believed she wasn't worthy of trying again. You are not broken, you are becoming. You've been in the dark before, and every time you survived. Maybe bruised, maybe tired, maybe disappointed, but you survived. Pain makes you forget how powerful you are. Shame makes you forget how worthy you are. Fear makes you forget how resilient you are. But you are here. You are listening. You are breathing. You are rising in ways you don't even see yet. The dark night is not your ending. It is your initiation. You're being shaped for the life that's waiting for you. You're being carved into someone softer, stronger, truer. This chapter is not meant to scare you. It's meant to remind you. You have survived every dark night, including the ones you thought would destroy you. And the one you're worried about now, you will survive that too. Closing. Now that you've walked through the dark with truth and compassion, you're ready for something deeper. The science behind why you feel this way and why everything you've lived makes perfect sense. The dark night shows you who you are. The science shows you why you became that way. Together, they show you how to rise. End of Chapter 8. Chapter 9. The Science of Addiction in Plain Language. Everything you've lived through, every craving, every relapse, every spiral, every moment of shame makes perfect sense once you understand what's happening inside your body. This chapter isn't here to overwhelm you. It's here to free you. Because understanding removes shame. Understanding restores choice. Understanding helps you see yourself clearly for the first time. Let's walk through the science in the most human way possible. Your brain isn't trying to hurt you. It's trying to keep you alive. Your brain has one mission: survival. Not happiness, not emotional peace, not clarity, not long-term well-being. Survival. Your mind does not ask, is this healthy? It asks, does this remove the danger right now? And anything that brings fast relief,
fast numbness, fast comfort, fast escape gets labeled by the brain as, yes, this helps us survive. Your brain is not betraying you. It's misinformed. It thinks your addiction is protecting you. The dopamine loop. Why your brain chases relief, not pleasure. Dopamine is misunderstood. People call it the pleasure chemical. It isn't. Dopamine is the anticipation chemical. It fires when your brain predicts relief. Here's the loop. Pain, craving, ritual, relief, dopamine, memory, repetition. You're not chasing pleasure, you're chasing predictability. Your brain loves anything it can count on to soothe you quickly, even if the long-term cost is high. Cravings form when your brain remembers relief more than it remembers consequences. The emotional brain versus the thinking brain. Inside you, two systems live side by side, the emotional brain and the thinking brain. The emotional brain is fast, reactive, impulsive, fear-based, wired for survival, triggered by loneliness, shame, rejection, overwhelm. The thinking brain is slow, logical, reflective, long-term, grounded, wise. But here's the truth most people never learn. The emotional brain can shut down the thinking brain in less than half a second if it senses danger, including emotional danger. That's why you say, I know better, so why can't I do better? Because the part of you that knows better isn't the one in charge when the craving hits. This isn't a flaw, this is biology. Your nervous system, the real engine behind addiction. Your nervous system moves between two worlds, safety and threat. Safety feels like calm, clarity, connection, breathing deeply, feeling grounded, thinking clearly, being present. Threat feels like tension, overwhelm, panic, numbness, racing thoughts, tight chest, shallow breath. Make this stop right now. Addiction happens almost entirely in the threat state. When your system senses loneliness, shame, rejection, uncertainty, pressure, fear, memories you haven't healed, old trauma, chronic stress, it shifts into survival. And in survival mode, cravings intensify, logic collapses, emotions surge, impulse control weakens. The body searches for escape. The brain demands relief. This is why the addiction feels stronger than you. Your biology thinks it's saving your life. Trauma in the body. Why the past still lives in your present. Trauma isn't only big moments. Trauma is any experience your system couldn't process. It lives in tight shoulders, restless hands, shallow breath, racing heart, shame in your stomach, fragile self-worth, fear of being seen, fear of disappointing others, fear of losing control, fear of abandonment, urge to isolate, urge to disappear. Your body remembers everything your mind forgets. If you grew up in chaos, calm feels unsafe. If you grew up unseen, connection feels dangerous. If you grew up criticized, self-compassion feels foreign. If you grew up walking on eggshells, your body still flinches at emotional footsteps. Addiction becomes a way to regulate what was never regulated for you. Neuroplasticity, why you are never stuck. There is one word that can rewrite your whole life: neuroplasticity. It means your brain can adapt, heal, change, grow new pathways, prune old ones, rewire habits, shift identity, create new emotional associations. Everything you repeat becomes stronger. If you repeat addiction, those pathways deepen. But if you repeat grounding, breathwork, self-awareness, replacement rituals, connection, honest reflection, boundary setting, self-compassion, new behaviors. Your brain will build new roads. Addiction is not a destiny, it's a pattern, and patterns can be replaced. The spiritual layer, what science can't measure.
There is a part of you science doesn't chart, your spirit. Addiction is not just a chemical loop, it is spiritual disconnection. Disconnection from your truth, your softness, your worth, your inner child, your higher self, your future, your voice, your needs, your sacredness. Addiction is what happens when the soul goes quiet to survive the noise. Healing begins when your spirit is allowed to speak again. You weren't taught any of this. You were never taught how to regulate emotions, how to calm your body, how to recognize triggers, how to ride a craving, how to speak kindly to yourself, how to tolerate discomfort, how to sit with loneliness, how to question shame, how to break a cycle consciously, how to ask for help without guilt, how to heal. You weren't given the manual. You weren't given the language. You weren't given the tools, but you blamed yourself anyway. You don't have to do that anymore. Everything you've struggled with makes sense. Every relapse makes sense. Every craving makes sense. Every shame spiral makes sense. Every moment you ran from yourself makes sense. Every habit you used to survive makes sense. Not because you're weak, because your brain and body were trying to keep you alive in the only ways they knew. You did not fail, you adapted. Now, you're learning a new way. A way that doesn't require running from yourself. A way that doesn't require destroying yourself just to silence your pain. A way that honors the truth of who you are becoming. You're not learning how to escape. You're learning how to live. End of chapter 9. Chapter 10, the guided visualization, coming home to yourself. Let yourself slow down. Not perfectly, just enough to feel your own presence again. You've spent years bracing without realizing it, years tightening your shoulders, years walking around with your jaw locked, your breath shallow, your heart guarded. This moment is here to undo that, to help you return to the version of yourself you stopped hearing somewhere along the way. Step 1, the breath that brings you back. Take a slow breath in through your nose. Hold it gently for a moment. Let it fall out of your mouth. Again, in, pause, and out. Let your shoulders drop just a little. Let your stomach soften. Let your breath come easier. Every inhale brings you back. Every exhale lets something go. Step 2, entering the body. Bring your awareness down from the noise of the mind into the landscape of your body. Scan slowly your forehead, your jaw, your throat, your shoulders, your chest, your stomach, your back, your legs, your feet. You're not looking for what's wrong. You're learning how to listen. Wherever you feel tension, soften around it. Wherever you feel heaviness, allow it. Your body has carried all your stories without being asked how it feels. This moment is the beginning of asking. Step 3, setting down the weight. Imagine all the tension in your body as a heavy cloak around your shoulders. This cloak holds everything. Stress you never spoke about, fear you learned to hide, loneliness you carried quietly,
expectations that crushed you, roles you performed to survive, masks you wore to stay accepted, old memories that tighten your breath, old identities you outgrew but couldn't release. Feel that weight. Then imagine unbuttoning the cloak, slowly, gently. Let it drop off your shoulders and fall to the ground. You don't have to carry it in this moment. Step 4. Meeting the younger you. Now imagine the younger version of yourself, the you before shame, before the self-blame, before the survival patterns, before the silence. See their face, their eyes, their innocence, their hope, their confusion, their tenderness. This child isn't judging you. They never have. They've only ever wanted one thing: for you to come back for them. Let them step toward you. Let them reach out a hand. Let yourself kneel so you can meet them where they are. Look them in the eyes and gently say, "I see you. I remember you. I'm not leaving you again." Feel what happens in your chest. Feel the softening. Feel the truth. They whisper back, "I've been waiting." Step 5. Reconnecting with yourself. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the warmth. Feel the pulse. Feel the movement beneath your palm. Say softly inside, "I'm here. I'm listening. You're safe with me." Not to the world, not to me, to yourself. This is how emotional abandonment ends, not through perfection, but through presence. Step 6. The room inside you. Imagine walking down a hallway inside your mind. One door stands out, a door you haven't opened in a long time, maybe years, maybe decades. This door leads to the part of you that holds your truth, your softness, your intuition, your exhaustion, your longing, your real voice. Reach for the handle. Open the door slowly. Inside is a quiet room, warm, safe, sacred. Walk inside. Look around. This room holds everything you pushed away just to survive the life you lived. Sit in the center of it. Let the silence greet you. Let the air recognize you. Say quietly, "This is my space. I belong here." Feel the grounding that comes with that truth. End of chapter 10. Chapter 11. If you relapse. There's something important you need to hear plainly. If you relapse, that does not mean you failed. It means you were overwhelmed. It means your body reached for what it remembers. It means your mind followed a pathway you practiced for years before you ever learned another way. Relapse is not a character flaw. It is a conditioned response. What relapse actually means. Relapse means your nervous system hit a moment it didn't know how to hold. A moment too loud, too heavy, too painful, too lonely, too shameful, too fast. You didn't relapse because you're weak. You relapsed because your system was trying to protect you in the only way it understood. That doesn't make you hopeless. It makes you human. The most dangerous part of relapse is not the relapse. It's the silence after. It's the way your chest tightens as you sit there alone. It's the sinking in your stomach. It's the trembling in your hands. It's the voice that whispers, "You ruined everything. You're back at zero. You're not strong enough. No one will understand. Why do you always do this?" None of that is truth. It's fear. It's shame. It's the echo of the old cycle trying to pull you back. What to do right after you relapse. First, Don't run from yourself. Sit, even if it's uncomfortable, even if your chest feels tight, even if your mind wants to disappear. Do this. Step 1, drink water. Your body needs regulation. Step 2, sit down. Let the world stop for a moment. Step 3, place your hand on your chest and say softly, I'm overwhelmed and I'm trying. Feel how that sentence shifts your breathing. Feel how it interrupts the panic. Step 4, name what you felt before the slip. Loneliness, fear, shame, anger, pressure, exhaustion, abandonment, hopelessness. Name it. Naming reduces intensity. Naming makes the emotion human. Naming takes power away from shame. A deeper understanding. You are not back at zero. You are further than you've ever been. Why? Because this time you're aware. This time you understand the cycle. This time you know what your triggers are. This time you recognize what your nervous system is doing. This time you know how to reconnect with yourself instead of abandoning yourself. Awareness is progress, even when the behavior hasn't caught up yet. A story. The night someone almost gave up. There was a man named Julian. He'd been sober for months. He felt proud. He felt hopeful. Then one night, a hard night, he relapsed. He sat on the edge of his bathtub with his hands over his face and whispered, I ruined everything. But then something in him softened. He put his hand on his heart and said, I'm hurting, not hopeless. Those words didn't erase the relapse, but they stopped the spiral. He didn't throw the whole journey away. He didn't disappear. He didn't collapse. He kept going, not because he was perfect, but because he refused to abandon himself again. That is resilience. That is recovery. That is healing. How shame keeps you in the cycle. Shame does not prevent relapse. Shame creates relapse. Shame tells your nervous system, I am the problem. And when you become the problem, your body reaches for the only comfort it knows. When you stop judging yourself, you stop feeding the cycle. When you start understanding yourself, you start weakening the pattern. What your nervous system needs from you. Your system doesn't need punishment. It needs partnership. It needs to hear, I'm here. I'm learning. I'm not abandoning you. We're figuring this out. This is how you heal a lifetime of self-rejection. This is how you break a pattern that once felt unbreakable. A soothing reset for when you're in the middle of the spiral. Put your hand on your chest. Feel the rise under your palm. Feel the warmth. Feel the movement. Say softly, I'm overwhelmed, but I'm not lost. I slipped, but I'm still becoming. I fell, but I can rise gently. I'm human, and I deserve my own patience. Let your breath slow. Let your stomach unclench. Let your shoulders drop. The version of you that appears when you fall. There is a version of you that only shows up when everything feels broken. Not the collapsing version, not the panicking version, not the shaming version. The version that tries again. The version that presses play anyway. The version that breathes through the shaking. The version that whispers, I don't want to give up. That version of you is more powerful than you know. They're here, right now, listening, learning, healing, trying, and I see them. Closing. Relapse is not the end. Relapse is information. Relapse is a moment, not your identity. You are not defeated. You are not beyond repair. You are not stuck. You are becoming someone who rises in compassion, not in punishment. Now that you understand relapse without shame, you're ready for the final blessing, the one that closes the wound and opens the next chapter of your life. End of chapter 11. Chapter 12.
The closing blessing. If you're here, if you've made it to this chapter, I want you to pause for a moment and feel the truth of that. You showed up for yourself. You walked through memories you tried to forget. You faced patterns you didn't want to see. You breathed through emotions that have lived in your body for years. And through all of it, you stayed. That alone makes you rare. A blessing for your heart. Your heart has been fighting battles no one else could see. You carried guilt that wasn't yours. You carried shame that grew out of misunderstanding. You carried fear that came from being unprotected. You carried loneliness in crowded rooms. You carried expectations too heavy for any one soul to hold. Your heart has survived what should have broken it, and yet here it is, still open enough to listen, to learn, to hope. Let me speak directly to that still beating place in you. You were never broken. You were burdened, and burdens can be lifted. A blessing for your mind. Your mind has been loud, overthinking, overanalyzing, overprotecting, not because it hates you, because it didn't feel safe. Your mind replayed worst-case scenarios because it didn't want you hurt again. Your mind held on to old stories because it believed they kept you alive. Your mind went numb at times because feeling everything would have drowned you. Your mind was doing its best with what it knew. But now, it knows more. You've learned how to pause, how to notice, how to breathe, how to soften, how to question shame, how to sit with yourself instead of abandoning yourself. Your mind can finally rest. A blessing for your body. Your body has carried every moment you didn't speak about. It held your tension when you had to stay strong. It held your tears when crying felt unsafe. It held your shaking hands when fear rose. It held your cravings when overwhelm hit. It held your exhaustion when the world asked you for too much. It held your silence when your voice wasn't welcome. Place your hand on your chest. Feel that warmth beneath your palm. Feel the movement. Feel the life. Say softly, I forgive you. I understand you. I'm learning you. Your body has been waiting a very long time to hear those words. A blessing for your spirit. Your spirit, the part of you beneath thought, beneath pattern, beneath pain, never left you. It dimmed at times. It hid. It went quiet so you could survive the noise, but it never abandoned you. And now, after everything, your spirit is rising. Not loud, not dramatic. Rising in presence. Rising in truth. Rising in softness. Rising in clarity. Your spirit remembers who you were before the world hardened you. And it remembers who you can become when you stop running from yourself. A blessing for your becoming. You are not your addiction. You are the one who survived it, who learned from it, who rose through it, who kept breathing even when hope felt small. You are not your worst moments. You are not the decisions you regret. You are not the stories shame told you. You are not the pattern that once held you. You are the one who kept trying. You are the one who came back to yourself. You are the one who stayed. And that matters more than you know. A final truth for your path forward.
Healing is not about perfection. It's not about never relapsing. It's not about becoming someone else. Healing is the moment you stop abandoning the parts of yourself that were hurting. Healing is the return, not once, but again and again and again. Each return rewires something inside you. Each return softens something inside you. Each return awakens something inside you. You are already becoming the version of you that your younger self prayed for and your future self relies on. Closing. Thank you for walking this path, for choosing honesty, for choosing compassion, for choosing presence, for choosing life when it would have been easier to disappear into old patterns. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for returning. This is not your ending. This is your beginning. End of chapter 12.
Closing.
Take a moment now, not with your mind, with your heart. You came a long way, longer than you think. You didn't just listen to words. You walked through pieces of yourself you once avoided. You breathed into places you used to numb. You faced truths you carried silently for years. You didn't run. You didn't hide. You stayed, even when it hurt. That is courage. That is healing. That is becoming. You are not at the end of your journey. You are at the doorway of a new one. A journey where you treat yourself with softness, with patience, with honesty, with compassion. A journey where relapse is not a verdict, but information. Where cravings are not commands, but signals. Where shame no longer controls your breath. Where the past no longer owns your future. You are walking toward a life that feels like safety instead of survival. And even when you stumble, even when you fall back into old patterns, remember this: you are not failing. You are learning. You are becoming. You are returning to yourself, one breath at a time. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for every moment you didn't give up on yourself. You deserved this journey. You deserved this healing. You deserved this chance to come home. And you deserve every good thing that your next chapter will hold. This is not goodbye. This is your beginning.